In this episode of Haunted Cosmos, I tell Brian Sauvé's favorite joke of all time, Jean Valjean, and we talk about some suppressed inventions, which at the time of recording this intro, I can't remember what any of them are. Please enjoy. This episode of Haunted Cosmos is brought to you by Mount Athos. Results, purity, and sustainability in every bottle.
On the western border of Poland, there stands an old royal castle. It rises like a beacon of light and progress out of the forest surrounding it, a place meant to inspire hope. Only now it is remembered for a very grim event in its more recent past. It was a stormy night in 1944 when a group of elite Nazi delegates arrived at the castle. A line of staff stood ready to meet them, armed with black umbrellas. When the delegates, mostly top-ranking generals in the SS, exited, they were immediately escorted to a horse stable behind the gate that separated the driveway from the rear lawn. Once inside, amid the horses and fodder, there was a path leading to a dark tunnel. This tunnel the group of officials took, leaving the castle behind. After descending some wooden steps, the group entered a stone passage carved directly into the bedrock. It went further and further down. The overhead lights were dim. The air was thick, but still cold. After hundreds of feet descending, another entry opened into a massive cavern. The group went in and looked around to see scientists making preparations for some kind of experiment. It was a bizarre scene, a cavern of stone with a tiled floor and walls cut square and mounted with more ceramic tiles. A makeshift office stood in one corner, animal cages in another, and a stench like sulfur filled the air. Its scent was faint but unmistakable, mingled with food and waste from the animals. And there in the room's center, a bulky object sat on a concrete table. This object, the delegates knew, was the reason for their coming. After a moment, the leading man among them called for the attention of the scientists, who promptly sped over to meet their audience. The chief scientist, a Waffen SS war veteran himself, saluted his commander and explained what they were about to do without any prompting. The men were to stand behind a bright yellow line painted on the floor, near enough to where they already were. They would don suits to protect themselves from radiation and sunglasses with deeply tinted lenses. All of this was done in silent anticipation. Finally, as thunder continued to rumble through the sky far above them, everyone was ready. A single-file line of living things was placed next to the object on the concrete table. Cages containing lizards, rats, frogs, and snails, plants and saplings of different trees, matured vegetables and fruits. There was an evidently sedated dog, a sheep, and a bird. Finally, next to these, there was a man, a slave from the borders of the war who had escaped the prisoner camps, only to find himself in this far more menacing place. The lights dimmed to a mere glow at the behest of the leading scientist. Then, at another of his words, there was silence as the test began. Into the silence came a low droning sound that oscillated, as though something inside the object was spinning. The oscillation quickened until the droning was constant. Whatever moved inside it was moving fast. Seconds later, a faint glow of blue fog began to trace the outline of the object. The glow increased in luminosity until it became a beacon of light, bright in the otherwise darkened cavern. The shape and the noise made the whole thing appear like an alien beehive put into a frenzy. As the object's glow grew stronger, the other lights in the room, those previously dimmed, began glowing brighter themselves. The SS generals could feel their metal pins start to pull away from their blazers as a spontaneous magnetism formed around the object. Moments later, each man felt an acute irritation, like needles pricking every inch of his body. It was the zenith of the experiment. The animals began to wail in their respective manners. The single man crumbled to the ground, nude and shouting in terrible agony. In all of it, the top-ranking general, who had addressed the scientists could be seen smiling from ear to ear beneath his mask. Finally, just when the other observers thought the episode was over, the object, still glowing and droning in its deep tone, lifted off the concrete table and hovered under its own unseen power some 3 feet above its stage. And then, in a single instant, it all stopped. The object fell back down. The blue glow vanished. The overhead lights dimmed once more. The animals stopped their cries, and the man lay silent in the fetal position. All went quiet, save for the faint rolling thunder above the surface of the earth. The smiling general, still smiling, shook the chief scientist's hand with glee. He knew they were getting close. Thus the lore of the German Wunderwaffe, the Nazi bell, began. What was only theory for years before that fateful night was becoming real before the eyes of its masterminds. Let us engage in a thought experiment. Suppose you're sitting on a train at the station. You look out the rear window and see a clock tower just as the train begins to move forward. Now suppose further that this is a very special train, one that can travel in a perfectly straight line through space away from the clock tower at the speed of light. As the train slowly gains speed, you keep watching the clock. For a while, it appears to keep doing its thing, ticking the seconds and minutes away. But eventually, the train accelerates enough to approach the speed of light. As it does, and as you continue to watch the clock, you notice that the seconds seem to tick by slower and slower. Then, when the train finally reaches the speed of light, the clock stops moving altogether. Its image is frozen in the last instant before the train hit top speed. You wonder if the clock is somehow broken, if the timing of its breaking is coincidental with your light speed trip. But no, back at the station, it is still ticking away like normal for itself and everyone else there. Only for you, traveling away from it at light speed, has it stopped. The natural question is, which reality is the true reality? The one in which the clock still ticks, or yours in which it has stopped completely? This question plagued Albert Einstein for many years. He could not shake the image from his head. Einstein knew, as we all do, that reality has objectivity, that things and events happen in real and measurable ways. But he also knew that someone traveling at light speed away from something would not be able to receive any information from whatever was behind them. Why? Because the light wouldn't reach them. So again, which reality is true? This question and the answers he pursued eventually led Einstein to his theory of general relativity, a theory of motion in space and time that has governed the field of kinematics and mechanics since its founding and still today. It is, as far as approximations go, true. And with its truth comes a set of rules. The first rule states that nothing can travel faster than the speed of light. The laws of the natural world break down whenever this limit is exceeded, making it a fixed boundary of creation. The second rule, as a consequence of the first, is that while it is relativistically possible to travel forward in time, it is never possible to travel backward. These rules have been accepted and held as ironclad in the scientific community ever since. Or, perhaps more accurately, accepted for the most part. But what about those people, scientists or otherwise, who didn't or don't accept them? In 1925, the German state experienced its first sigh of relief since the Treaty of Versailles had been signed some 6 years earlier. The treaty, which ended World War I, dealt a death blow to Europe as it had been before the war. For Germany in particular, it guaranteed a level of poverty and instability that persisted until a brief period before World War II. Led by its multi-party parliamentary system, 1925 found Germany in the middle of her Weimar Republic arc. The Republic achieved its first semblance of control and credibility with the election of President Paul von Hindenburg. In this short reprieve from total societal chaos, other political parties were able to consolidate and strategize for their chance at power. One such party, the National Socialist Party, was led by a charismatic Austrian native named Adolf Hitler. His leadership of the Nazi Party was nothing short of controversial. Less than a year before, he had been in prison on charges related to a failed coup meant to overthrow the Republic. But it was that prison time that gave him renewed favor among the nationalists. To them, he was a martyr. and he even had the manifesto to prove it. While in prison, Hitler wrote what he considered his life's work, Mein Kampf. Ultimately, the details of Hitler's rise to power are neither here nor there for the purposes of this episode. What matters is that he did, in fact, gain the power he sought, and upon doing so, began reorganizing the upper echelons of government to ensure two things: the efficiency of his regime and the protection of his regime. On the protection front, Hitler commissioned the creation of a kind of Praetorian Guard for himself, the Schutzstaffel, or more simply, the SS. A few years later, the SS would reach its final form under Hitler's oversight and the direct leadership of Heinrich Himmler. While the Reich matured before its global debut at the start of World War II, the SS under Himmler evolved into an advanced and secretive army, loyal to the Führer above all else, even Germany itself. On the eve of global catastrophe, Hitler had a specialized team of highly motivated, highly trained, and well-funded individuals eager to accomplish whatever his will might conjure. And then World War II began. But there is another man worth mentioning who, though not part of the central leadership, was nonetheless an integral mind in the Nazi regime: Hans Kammler. Born to middle-class parents in what is now Poland, Kammler showed a technical aptitude throughout his schooling years that eventually earned him a doctorate in engineering from the Technical Institute in Munich. After a few years working in building code administration for small municipalities, Kammler joined the Nazi Party and rose quickly through the ranks of SS officers until he entered the Waffen-SS, the hardened combat branch of the Guard service. As a Waffen soldier, Kammler developed a reputation for ruthless fanaticism to the cause, rivaled only by Himmler himself. This earned him a promotion out of the Waffen, along with the title of general in Hitler's SS army. Specifically, Kammler was put in charge of constructing every SS project that Hitler initiated. Everything from office buildings to concentration camps fell under his sharp eye for both engineering and National Socialist ideology. To Himmler, Hitler, and the few others above him, he did not disappoint. With a vast force of labor at his disposal, Kammler built and built and built. He was the prototypical Nazi in this sphere, efficient, effective, and entirely ruthless in his expectations and execution. In August of 1943, deep into the war, the British Royal Air Force successfully bombed some of the Reich's most important weapons production facilities, the sites where its most classified weapons projects were undertaken. The attack led to a closed-door meeting between Hitler, Kammler, and one of Hitler's chief advisors, Albert Speer. In that meeting, they decided that German rocket production and other secret projects should be moved underground for three reasons. It would reduce the risk of destruction and its subsequent costs. It would reduce the chance of Allied intelligence gathering information on these classified and dangerous weapons, and it would reduce the risk of collateral damage to SS and other Nazi personnel should volatile weapons malfunction during production. Kammler was tasked with moving these facilities underground, a project everyone expected would take years. He completed it in mere months. With a merciless schedule and endless slave labor, Kammler had every weapons program fully operational underground before the end of 1943. Such excellent work deserved a reward from the Führer, who was happy to oblige. Total oversight of all secret weapons programs in the Third Reich was handed to Hans Kammler. And so, everything leading to one of the most enduring mysteries of Nazi Germany was set in motion. You see, Kammler was exactly the kind of individual I described earlier, the kind who rejected the rules of Einstein's relativistic physics, rules that forbade ideas like time travel. Upon his rise to such high office, Kammler wasted no time forming special research and development divisions within the SS in general, and the Waffen-SS in particular. The first of these groups, known simply as the R&D Group, was led by Heinrich Gartner under Kammler's direction. It was the more above board of the two secretive divisions. The other, however, was top secret even among the top secret. Endorsed and funded by Kammler, it was known as the FEP. What the acronym stands for has been lost to history. What is known is that it was managed by another SS four-star general, Emil Mazu, a mysterious figure with few records tying him to the SS at all. Mazu appears to have been hand-selected by Kammler to run this dark research operation with a single goal: create the ultimate Wunderwaffe. Wunderwaffe is German for wonder weapon. The idea was simple. With limitless funding, labor, and authority, the Third Reich stood at the precipice of technological possibility. Unhindered by mainstream understandings of mechanical and quantum physics, Kammler and Mazeux intended to turn imagination into reality. In doing so, they hoped to ensure the total victory of the Axis powers in World War II and a modern Germany at the forefront of weapons innovation. The outputs of these two groups, the ones we know about, already testify to the success of the vision. They apparently produced multiple Wunderwaffen in their quest for domination: the Graf Zeppelin aircraft carrier, the Type 18 U-boat, the mythical giant rat tank, countless missiles, and the sun gun mirror array designed to concentrate sunlight on massive areas until they erupted into sudden flame. Kammler achieved his goals many times over. His oversight of the secret weapons program fueled obsessive U.S. interest in German engineering after the war, an obsession that led to Operation Paperclip and the legal smuggling of Nazi mines into the U.S. space and medical programs. The atomic bomb, the Apollo missions, it can all be traced back to Kammler, Gartner, and Mazeux's search for the Wunderwaffe. But if the whispers are true, Kammler and Mazeux were never satisfied with these more conventional achievements. Their writings suggest they did not believe they had yet built the true holy grail of Wunderwaffen. Up to the final years of the war, they were convinced that there was still meat left on the bone of technological advancement. And so, in dark underground factories somewhere in the ancient land of Prussia, Mazeux kept working on something he believed would set man free from his limitations, something he believed he could finally call his own Wunderwaffe, a device so groundbreaking, so mysterious, so biblical in its capabilities, it would transcend the realm of wonder and enter into the category of miraculous. It went by various codenames: the Gate, Time, and the Lantern Bearer. All were suggestive, but all were temporary. Eventually, the German title Die Glock struck, and that is the name by which it is remembered today. In the uproar of the antebellum 20th century, an anonymous source emerged from deep within the Third Reich's circle of trust. He has remained anonymous ever since he first emerged, but the stories he shared have nonetheless immortalized him. He found a Polish war historian named Igor Witkowski, the only war historian willing to listen, and relayed the stories to him. He is how we know about the rumored bell at all. Reported by Witkowski to be a cylinder with a domed top, the bell was 9 feet tall and 5 feet in diameter. A ceramic outer shell hid 2 counter-rotating cylinders inside that spun on a central axis. These interior cylinders were filled with a substance known as red mercury, or Zerum-525, a thorium-beryllium-mercury compound that shed radioactive isotopes when disturbed. This radiation resulted in massive amounts of electromagnetic energy being produced by the operation of the machine. But, and here's where it gets crazy, what powered the operation? Well, that is just it. The bell powered the bell, or so it is said. If true, this means that the Nazis discovered the theory and built the technology capable of tapping into the zero-point energy presumed to exist in the aether of space-time. Essentially, the bell was a perpetual motion device that, due to its intimate connection with the quanta of reality, could manipulate the different fields of matter and gravity and electricity around it to accomplish whatever the scientists wished. In short, the Nazi bell was a time-traveling, teleporting, and gravity-defying engine capable of turning the apparent nothingness of space into a limitless energy source or a powerful energy death ray that could destroy entire cities. But did the Nazi bell really exist? And if it did, where is it today? Unfortunately, the answer to both questions is, we don't know. Any detailed answer that is given with any confidence must be seen for what it is, pure speculation. And yet, some of these speculative answers are well worth considering, both for their strangeness and for the explanatory power they have regarding other loose ends of the Third Reich in World War II. As the Nazi war effort crumbled, the politics within the Reich turned into chaos. Most notably, Himmler's SS enacted a form of martial law within the higher-up structures of the government upon Hitler's death and the turning tide of the European front. Assassinations stacked up as general after general was unceremoniously done away with. Why Himmler did this is unknown. Perhaps it was mercy in the face of defeat and post-war sanctions. Perhaps it was insurance to protect the Nazi secrets from the victorious Allies. Whatever the reason, though, the result was the same. Very few of those in the upper echelons of the Nazi regime escaped unscathed. In the midst of this upheaval, Hans Kammler was a fish out of water. He defied orders, moved troops and goods and research from Alpine village to Alpine village, following pure instinct. He became a lone wolf, and steadily, the men following him reduced in number to virtually zero. All he had were his own wits and the scientific findings that he believed would define the coming millennium. He knew he had to escape the chaos. He knew he had to keep working. He had to stay alive for the greater good of the Nazi cause. And lucky for him, rumors started to spread about a Nazi outpost established in Argentina, a place insulated from the accusations of war crimes, a place where the cause and the work could be reborn. Kammler made plans to go there. He bribed a couple pilots and the marshal of an airfield before boarding the last remaining Junkers 390 cargo jet in the world and setting off through the sky. Hans Kammler was never officially seen again. But some say he wasn't alone on that plane. Some say that the infamous Bell was right beside him, helping him and promising him some positive turn in the near future. Thus, we can assume that Kammler thought himself safe, free from the prying eyes of the Allies and free from the trigger-happy hand of the SS that helped make him. He was going to Argentina, where he could die peacefully and productively. Only, it is very likely that he never made it to Argentina. You see, though Kammler never shows up in any post-war trial or Operation Paperclip case file, there is a small record which betrays that he may have nonetheless fallen into American custody. On November 2nd, 1945, Brigadier General George MacDonald, Director of U.S. Intelligence in Europe, filed a report commissioning the immediate integration of their newest capture, Hans Kammler. Whether the report was real or a ruse, whether Kammler was interrogated or not, whether he was part of the black U.S. ops after the fact, again, we just don't know. But what if he was kept alive by the U.S.? What if he and the Bell with him were flown back to the States in order to help its people advance? Well, if we grant that this happened for a moment, it seems like it was a wasted effort, right? I mean, if Kammler and the Bell came to the US, why didn't we see its technology in use everywhere today? But that is just it. We don't see it because it is being hidden. There is grand conspiracy tied to this special Bell, that behind the veil of our conventional space program, there is a secret operation, a dark space program, which tests and uses technologies beyond our comprehension. Technologies that, when witnessed, seem alien to us. Roswell, the Nevada Lights, Area 51, the incident at Devil's Den, Skinwalker Ranch, and all the other UFO sightings reported by lay people across our country and the world. What if they are all government air and spacecraft engineered using Bell technology and kept secret from us for some higher government purpose? What if indeed? And that is what we are investigating in this episode of Haunted Cosmos. Because you see, the Nazi Bell is not the only technology that has supposedly vanished right when it fell into the hands of the US government. Perhaps we should explore some other examples.
Mount Athos Performance is a family-owned fitness brand that gives you the tools you need to cultivate a lifestyle of health and fitness. Bro, you know I'm doing an ad right now, right?
Oh, yeah. No, you're doing great, man. Keep it up.
But can you stop shaking the bottle just for a minute?
Oh, wait. You want me to stop shaking my Mount Athos Performance shaker bottle filled with Mount Athos Performance protein?
Yes, that would be great.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure.
Well, as I was saying, Mount Athos sources their goat whey from their family-owned farm so they can create a product that's not full of crazy chemicals or additives.
Oh, yeah, dude. You can tell this is the good stuff. I'm drinking this goat so that I can get goated. Oh, yeah.
Well, they have products like protein powder, creatine, supplements for your mind. There should be one for sleep somewhere. Head to athosperform.com and use code NCP20 for 20% off your order today.
Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of Haunted Cosmos. I am glad to be here. My name is Ben Garrett. I'm glad to be here with my friend and co-host, Brian Sauvé.
I'm drinking from a mug with my own face on it.
So true. And bonus third co-host for this episode.
No, don't do it, dude.
Guess who's in the studio? Hugh Jackman.
Don't.
Hugh, say hello. Hello.
I told Ben.
It is so good to be here.
I said, Ben, no one is going to get this.
6,
Okay, now you're cheating. Now you're cheating. I said, no one is going to get this reference. It's not
It's
funny.
the funniest joke I've ever made.
It is not. So,
Dude, there's this guy on Instagram who does that. He's like, songs covered by Hugh Jackman. And every single one makes me laugh so hard.
you are a special person.
So, welcome to this episode of Haunted Cosmos. We are here today talking about suppressed technologies / forbidden or hidden inventions.
And man, there's some
almost
crazy
said
stories.
technologies.
There are some crazy stories in here.
Yeah.
Ones that have stuck with me, like I heard them in passing.
Yeah.
They just stick in my craw.
One
You know
in
what I'm saying?
particular. Yeah.
I think we might have the same
I think
one.
we might have the same one. Would be
Poisoned.
pretty crazy.
The-
Yeah.
dude, Cracker Barrel.
Dude, Crack B.
You can't say that.
Why? It's Cracker Barrel.
Cracker Barrel. That's not a safe one to shorten in that way.
Crack B? It turns out
Dude, you got to stop. But before we get into that,
almost any phrase could be abbreviated
that's true.
in a very basic way, and it sounds
It
questionable.
wouldn't sound okay.
No.
It's questionable. We just got back from hanging out with our friends at Ninjas Are Butterflies.
Yeah.
And if you haven't already, go check it. I think it's episode 155.
I
over
think
on
so.
their YouTube channel.
Yep.
We want to help out a small creator like Ninjas Are Butterflies. So we wanted to get them the number of subscribers we have on our
Right.
YouTube channel. So go check that out. Yeah, it's Sunday Cool is the channel, but
Yep.
Ninjas Are Butterflies. We had a great time. We talked about everything.
Yeah, we did.
talked about the Snallygaster, which
talked
you guys are
about
experts in
Snally.
now.
We did not talk about suppressed inventions.
We didn't. We held that back because
Yeah.
we got to keep something in the tank
Exactly.
for you guys.
But no, shout out Josh, Andy, Andrew.
Appreciate you guys.
And I believe Lily is Josh's wife.
Yes.
She wasn't there, but shout out you guys. Y'all were awesome.
It was so fun.
Great
We had a
hosts.
time.
We had really
they
good
wrote us a song that we might include in episodes at some point from now on.
Evanescence.
So we'll see.
Are we going to get that song?
We'll see.
Oh,
the song's
Evanescence
in.
says yes.
Evanescence says it's in.
Hey, hola, Martina. Let's everyone say hello to Martina.
What a guy. This guy. And people say that you are racist.
No, Martin thinks it's funny.
Okay.
That's why I do it.
Yeah. So this episode, we're going to be talking about suppressed inventions.
Yep.
The kind of stuff that it's like, did the government and big oil and big energy and big
Bigelow,
cereal and Robert
airspace.
Bigelow. Yeah.
And big Moto from Madagascar.
Don't get the reference, but
Really?
Dude,
You've never seen Madagascar?
the fact that you think I watch movies at this point.
No, that's crazy though. It's like a great kids movie. You've never seen Madagascar?
No.
Oh, well, Moto is a legendary character from Madagascar.
Wow.
He is a hippopotamus, king of the river.
I see.
And he likes him big, he likes him chunky, is one of the songs that he sings.
No.
Martin.
No.
Yeah, dude. I'm serious.
This is a kid's show, dude. You can't.
It's a kid's movie. I'm just literally quoting the
but
song.
You have a way of quoting from things that would
walks
have
like
been
this.
fine.
He walks
but
like
then when you do them, it makes them way worse.
It's literally a direct quote.
Okay. We have some good news for you guys before we talk about suppressed inventions. And that is that we are doing a giveaway with this show. Okay. We're going to be doing a sick giveaway.
Yeah.
Because Evanescence and Martina McBride, they don't work for free.
No, they don't.
No, they don't. A lot of hands touch Haunted Cosmos before, like a lot of hands, a lot of skilled hands.
How many? I mean, in this room, 8.
There are 8 hands in this room. Well, 7.6 hands.
So 7.6 hands touch Haunted
in
Cosmos.
this room. You should see Ben attempt to type anything.
Here's the problem.
It is absolutely
No,
amazing.
all right. So it is bad, even when no one's watching.
It took like 45 minutes for him to type one sentence in my presence.
With my left hand, I can only type with my ring finger.
Really?
because my other fingers are just too small. I have tiny.
Yeah, Ben.
I'm handy capable with my my
that's
left
true.
hand, but so I'm always like this.
Oh, dude, that hurts me to like see.
Okay, but then-
whack and nub like that.
I think everyone can relate to this. When someone is watching you type, you suddenly lose the ability to type.
I can't identify with this.
I can identify.
I can't identify with
I'm a
this at
pretty
all.
good typer. I type a lot.
Typist.
Typist.
Yeah, typist.
Typewriter.
But here's the thing. If you sign up to support this show, which you can do at patreon.com/hauntedcosmos. We have Supercast as well as an option. It's more podcast forward.
Yep.
Patreon's like app version. Supercast is like podcast only. Not only are you going to gain access to all of the normal benefits of being a supporter of our show, which are vast and nearly beyond measure, we are also going to be giving 2 giveaways in this show. One of them is going to be a standard like Sweet Haunted Cosmos t-shirt and mug.
Yeah.
Which we'll send to you free of charge.
Yep. To 3 people that sign
like-
up in the next 24 hours after this show drops to the public.
Yep.
Mug and shirt design are TBD,
Yeah.
but they're going to be great.
Be
I
great.
promise
Haunted,
that.
could be the Haunted Cosmos double face.
We may actually just give you the option because
Yeah.
we'll reach out to you and be like, hey, what's your size?
Yeah, let's go.
What's
Let's
your
go.
color? You know.
But secondly, you are going to be immemorialized in Haunted Cosmos fame.
yeah.
Might not be a word. I don't know. By receiving a part of our set.
Yeah.
Which we will sign and write a little note to you, personalized. It'll be one of the pictures hanging on this wall. We will send it to you in a frame. It'll be signed and it's going to have all sorts. So you're going to be like, you'll be able to say it was in an episode, multiple episodes, even at this point.
Yep.
Of Haunted Cosmos.
That's going to be
we'll have to get
one
a new thing.
lucky sign up.
Yeah.
And then because of you, we're going to have to get a whole new piece of decor. And I mean, Brian and I worked really, really hard on this set.
Yeah.
We put a lot of hours
We
into figuring out.
labored.
We specifically, not Evan,
We, the team.
nor Martin. Yeah, the royal we.
When we say we, like we don't mean just Evan by himself.
And hey, by the way, sorry.
Yeah.
That was going to be a hilarious joke, and I just interrupted you.
That's fine.
If you don't know what pictures we're talking about, go check us out on YouTube.
YouTube, yeah.
Yeah.
Join the 52.4 thousand and counting subscribers because, guys, help us get to 100,000 YouTube subscribers and we will receive a silver play button from YouTube, probably, and we'll put it up on the wall.
And we will send it to one of you.
No, we won't. No, we actually won't do that. Imagine that if we did.
But what if we did?
We'll take a picture with it and we'll sign it and send it to you.
Yeah, hey, that'd be great.
There you go.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so Nazi Bell.
Let's talk about Nazis.
Let's get into
I
this.
think a natural segue. Let's talk about allegedly lost
Yeah.
Nazi technology powering UAP and UFO phenomenon.
Yeah.
Ever since.
Obviously, a lot to get into with
Yeah.
the whole Nazi regime and the whole idea.
Yeah.
Not really what this
We're
show
really
is
just
about.
interested in their bell.
Yeah, we're really just
much it.
interested in the secret technology that they found that could warp space-time and at will.
Die Glockenspiel.
I guess the basic question. Okay, this is a two-parter.
Okay.
Part A, when did you hear about the Nazi bell? Part B, do you think that it existed? I just want to know, like, do you think that this is legit?
I heard about the Nazi bell at least 10 years ago for the first time. Probably earlier than that. And it was probably in the context of one of those Travel Channel style shows.
Yeah.
Where they were like, the Nazi bell, did it exist? Could it teleport you to Argentina?
The Nazi bell and the Bermuda Triangle.
What does Hitler, a German physicist, and your mom have in common? They all warp space time. I don't know. That doesn't even make sense.
That was good. I was going to make a shape, like a joke on the shape, like bell shaped.
I knew. I could feel it.
But the warp space time's way good.
No, so I did hear about it back then, and it's one of those things that most of me, like inside of me, there are two wolves. Both of them believe in the Nazi bell. No. I think that I will say I'm convinced that during this period of time, both the Axis and Allied powers were going to extraordinary lengths to try and discover technology that could be used for winning the war, and that they did some weird stuff.
Yeah. Now, the avenue that interested me, that didn't really get into in the cold open just for time's sake, because it was really imperative that I utilized 5 minutes to talk about Einstein's thought experiment about the clock tower.
Dude, we all needed
We needed that.
We needed that.
Hey, put it in the comments. Did you like that? If you didn't like it, don't put anything in the comments.
It's like that
Confirmation
famous
bias.
episode where we were talking about like Wolfmen, and then Ben was like, you know what this episode needs? A 17-page soliloquy on the desert before we even talk about anything. And after that, like we had a talk. we were like, it's got to stop.
Timestamp 0000 to 12 minutes.
I said, Ben, in this episode, nothing happened until 12 minutes in.
And you know what?
Dude, but it was so good.
Do I regret it? No. Would I do it again? Yes.
Never change.
If my like livelihood didn't depend on it, I would do it again.
Dude, never change.
All right, look. So the thing that interests me is the occultic side of this. Are you familiar at all with kind of the...
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, so let me give you some background. This is kind of an emergency story mode, Evan, just in post. Just take a note. There was a book that was written by a guy named Edward Lytton in the 19th century, like 1870s. And it was called The Coming Race. Now, it was about an underground society called the Vrillians.
Okay.
VRIL-YAN. And they had access to this like underlying energy that was present everywhere. And they had learned how to tap into it. And so their society was utopian, and they were humanoid, but they were like bigger and stronger and smarter than humans. And so anyway, there's that whole book, and it mentions the Vril thing, and there's a lot of other layers to the plot, but that's not what this is about. What it's about is that the Thule Society in Nazi Germany, are you familiar with the Thule Society?
No, dude, tell me more about it.
Okay, the Thule Society was the occultic theosophic society of Aryans that were Nazis in the regime.
I see.
A lot of lower level guys, part of the Thule Society, some of the higher level guys. But what they wanted to do was combine theosophic occultism and mysticism with their Aryan ideals. Okay. And for whatever reason, they latched on to this book, The Coming Race, and they thought that what Lytton was describing in the Vril language was something real. That there was some underlying energy that was always present, that if you could just learn how to tap into it, it would basically make you the most powerful person in the world, and you could do whatever you wanted. And so they started using their occultic practices and their mysticism, combining it with the National Socialism, and trying to tap in to this energy. And so a lot of people believe that Emil Marzu and Hans Kammler were actually members of the Thule Society, and they were like bought in to this Vril idea, and that the bell is their successful attempt to tap into the Vril energy using theosophic occultism.
Okay, Martin, put the camera on me. When you say Vril, I hear Riz, and I've tapped into it.
That wasn't worth it, man. That was worth it.
That was worth it.
So anyway, don't know.
Dude, in post, that's going to go hard.
We don't know if Kammler and Marzu were actually part of the Thule Society. We know that the Thule Society was real, and that they really did do that. But it's unknown as to like how far down the rabbit hole the SS was.
I know there were competing ideological groups within the Nazi Party. Just like people think of the Nazi Party as like this monolithic. There was just one ideology that everybody all believed in, and all the way down the line. But think of like the Republican Party. There's like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different wings or groups of the Republican
neocons,
Party.
paleocons, there's Tea Party.
There's like a bunch of, and over time it diversifies and people follow different leaders. And I know the Nazi Party was like that. And they certainly had elements that were more occultic or more esoteric and theosophical and that sort of thing. So that's really interesting. People take an occultic element here and have a more spiritual understanding even of the Nazi bell. It's not like physics. It's more mystical than spiritual energy.
What I do, so inside of me, there are two wolves. Okay. Both of them believed that the Nazi bell was
both
real.
handsome.
Both very handsome.
Yeah.
They don't look anything like me. Both believe in the Nazi bell. The one believes that Kammler and the Nazi bell just like went to Argentina and nothing happened. He died.
Okay.
The other one,
that's sad.
The other
for him.
I mean, kind of. Yeah, I
I
guess.
said for him.
That's what he wanted.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So the other one, he gets intercepted by the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
He gets drafted into basically the secret space program.
Yeah.
And a lot of the UFOs that we see today are actual, they're just man's own inventions based on the Nazi Bell technology. I think that's interesting.
Now we know.
But there is a secret third wolf.
Whoa.
Yeah, there's a secret third wolf lurking in the shadows that
You're kidding.
believes that Hans Kammler and the Nazi Bell went to Antarctica,
Okay,
where they actually
here we
went
go.
into the hollow earth. They found the Vrillians.
Okay.
They really exist. Okay.
No.
And he's still there.
No. Dude, that's unbelievable. I mean, literally, that is unbelievable. Here, I will say this. We know some things. We know that Operation Paperclip is real and existed. Where they're saying, let's take the best and brightest minds from the Axis powers and the Nazis in particular, and Japan as well, and let's make sure that we insulate them from any war crimes trials. We bring them in because we really want to tap into their knowledge and barter their lives for their experimental results, and bring them into these secret government programs that are intent on creating new technologies for war and for any other purposes, really.
Yeah.
We know that the Manhattan Project at this time, like I said, the Allies and the Axis both had projects that were secret, highly secret, that were working on war technology.
Yeah.
The Manhattan Project is basically the most concentrated coming together of scientific minds in history that we know of to create the fission bombs and to create the nuclear program that ultimately resulted in the bombs that we dropped on Japan.
Many Nazis involved in that project.
Yes, absolutely.
Werner von Braun, Heisenberg. Was Oppenheimer a Nazi? I don't think so.
No. And then coming out of that time period, even after the war, we know that this continued and that these, relatively crude fission bombs became multi-stage weapons, hydrogen bombs, that are fusion devices that basically took, what we think of now at the time was massive yields and turned them 10, 20, 50, 100 times more powerful devices that now, at the peak of two-stage weapons, bombs that have unimaginable power.
Yeah.
That could destroy not just a city, but, even larger areas and,
like
absolutely
a county.
terrifying technology.
Yeah.
Absolutely terrifying technology. So we know that exists. And then when you bring in the other two threads that are interesting to me in this conversation, one, the UFO sightings phenomenon, which is massive and concentrated very much in North America.
And concentrated especially after World War II.
Yes. Concentrated in North America after World War II, many close to military installations and nuclear sites, and related even like to the Vietnam War and other, the Cold in the midst of the Cold War. So we see these sightings that many of them describe what looks like military technology that we would create that have capabilities that are beyond anything we have.
Yeah.
So there are stories of like an F-117 type of craft that looks kind of like that jet, but then is able to do crazy non-ballistic motion and all sorts of stuff that is not possible with our current technology, not even close to possible with our current technology. And so some people theorize that the U.S. government captured this technology or in either in its infancy and then developed it far more, or just this fully developed technology and began to create all sorts of secret government programs and weapons programs like Blacker Than Black. And that's what we're seeing. And they use the UFO thing as a cloak, and they're playing 4D chess. Okay.
Yeah.
So even like the Tic Tac video in this idea is, this is starting to get out a little bit. Let's leak a chance encounter that we orchestrated. Maybe the pilots don't even know, with this radar detectable object that's flying in a non-ballistic way. And let's leak that to show, to obfuscate some more. So people are like talking about off-world technology, but really it's all George W. Bush.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
Now,
true.
The common objection that I hear to this,
All true.
all true, bottom and top. The common objection that I hear to this is especially from people that have worked in the government or with the government, is that could never happen because the government can't even tie its own shoes. You know, it needs contractual help to do that. First of all, who's to say that you can have contractor help to do something like this? But that's a little bit too pragmatic. Ultimately, the thing that stops the government from getting anything done is the bureaucracy and the red tape. But what Brian is talking about is like blacker than black funding and projects that basically take away all the red tape.
You have no red tape.
And allow you to just get whatever you need to do done with no oversight whatsoever.
Yeah.
No checks and balances. And that really is I think a compelling theory, because if you believe that governments don't have that, then I think that's a dumb thing to believe, because
we know that they do.
Yeah, exactly. They've admitted to it in the past multiple times. Oh, but we're not doing it today.
Yeah, we're not doing it.
We're not doing it. Operation Paperclip, we're not doing anything like that now.
Yeah. And they're creating programs with weapons that are almost as strong as your muscles if you use Mount Athos Perform products.
Boom.
Hit me.
Mount Athos, Atlas Protein.
Can you imagine how strong you'd be if you were absolutely juicing? This is not actually anything illegal. If you were just every day getting the right amount of protein and recovery, unbelievable.
Can I just say, if you've ever seen a mountain goat climbing on a mountain, that could be you, because these use goat products.
Goat whey.
So you could be a goat.
Yeah, dude, absolutely.
This guy right here, goat of back muscles.
That's funny, because that's actually what my back doesn't look like, because I haven't used enough Mount Athos.
Mount Athos, more like Mount, I have those back muscles now that I take Mount Athos performance products.
Anyway, head to the website in the description and use the code there to get a great deal on your first order of Mount Athos.
One thing that I want to talk about, this comes up a lot in more of these stories, is 0 point energy.
Yeah, let's talk about this, because this is like, there's the mystical side of the technology. Maybe it's all like weird spiritual energy stuff, but then there's also like exotic physics that people are postulating ways in which you could produce limitless energy and propulsion that would even manipulate gravity, because you'd have, I mean, if you're stopping from 10,000 miles an hour and then going the other direction, all of a sudden you have to be manipulating gravity. Otherwise the person inside would die.
Yeah. Because you would, like, an object in motion tends to stay in motion.
Yeah.
Newton's first law. So can't break it.
You can't break it.
Nah, man.
Can you?
Now, no. You can't. You have to figure out a way to work around it.
Yeah.
One way is to manipulate gravity and space-time.
Yeah.
And I think that is part of it. But another way that these things tend to be powered, supposedly, is by this 0 point energy. So in the cold open, when it said that the bell was powered by the bell, like it's a perpetual motion device, that is now getting into this idea that's, I think, fairly cutting edge in physics and still pretty fringe, of 0 point energy, which says that no matter what, no matter how empty the vacuum is, no vacuum is actually a vacuum. There's nothing that's actually empty. There's also nothing that's actually at rest. Okay, so this gets into string theory, where the universe is made up of like vibrating strings. You don't have to buy into that, but you do have to recognize that if something were actually at rest, like no particles are moving whatsoever in anything, it would like cease to exist.
So this theory says that at that 0 point of energy, when allegedly there's no energy in the system, that it's in our quantum models,
there's still energy.
There's still actually stuff happening, and it's inexplicable.
Yeah, and so
still movement.
And so the thing is, if for those energy states, like let's say you're in a void of space, it's supposed to be a vacuum. The temperature is like as close to absolute zero as it can possibly be.
0 degrees Kelvin.
0 degrees Kelvin, but it's still not. There's still not no energy. Okay. And so if you can find a way to harness that energy, which theoretically should be possible, then you would have access to the latent energy that exists everywhere in the cosmos that would allow you to have a perpetual motion machine. Because think about it like this, like if you are, if you're a man, okay, and I'm a man, you're a man, and you're standing there just on the side of the road and you're going like this.
Yeah.
Right. You're going like, someone could theoretically come around and they could attach, a pulley to your arm that powers a gear, that turns a motor, that charges a battery. And as long as you do that, the battery will be charged.
Yeah.
Okay. So if there's particles that are always effectively doing that, just because that's what they do, not because they're being energized by anything but themselves.
Yeah.
If you can tap into that motion, then you could have perpetual motion in whatever machine you're trying to
You
power.
can get to the top.
So yeah, you get motion, you get to the top. So that is 0 point energy.
Okay, gotcha. So in a overly simplistic caveman sort of way, the idea is that there's energy in the vacuum.
Yes.
And as long as you're in space time, if you had the right device or mechanism, then you could tap into that energy, and anywhere you'd go in the universe, you don't need hydrogen to burn, you don't need gasoline, you don't need electricity stored in a battery. As long as you're in space time, you are able to move and tap into basically limitless energy.
Yeah.
And then other technologies around that would allow you to manipulate gravity or manipulate other fields to move or phase in and out of existence.
Yeah.
But like what we're trying to do still is solve the energy problem here on Earth in our terrestrial and normal, technological existence. We're still trying to harness energy from the sun or from hydrocarbons or, from coal, or we're trying to, fission energy, which nuclear energy, capturing, basically heating up water with radioactive material to create power. We're trying to right now, spending billions and billions of dollars to tap into fusion energy.
Yep.
If you can superheat elements and cause them to fuse together into heavier elements, there's energy released that's not like fission, exploding, splitting. You're actually bringing it together. This is what powers the sun.
Yeah.
We haven't yet been able to contain the fusion mass for long enough at high enough temperatures and pressures to create sustained fusion and capture that energy. But if we do, then we could literally take the most abundant molecule, the most abundant atoms in the universe, and create energy from them, like hydrogen,
helium.
into helium. So we're still trying to do that. And this is why it's so crazy, is that what this theory postulates is that people have skipped about 10 of those steps.
Yeah.
And they've jumped all the way to being able to tap into, you could call it the energy that God wove into the matter of the universe itself. The space-time, not even the matter.
Like the needle that he used to weave the tapestry of creation.
So it is kind of a crazy thing. And here's some of the challenges to it, I would say. If we had this technology, then a lot of other things also have to be true that aren't impossible to be true, but add layers of difficulty to the theory. Yeah. Like any government that had this technology, the kinds of technologies we're talking about, they would be absolutely unbeatable in war.
Yeah.
That would mean that all conventional warfare today is just fake.
Right.
It's just, it's real. People are really dying. We really are making Abrams tanks and shooting stuff with gunpowder and
projectiles. It's a patsy. But it's not the real deal.
There's some cabal that really has utter control over all things. And they're just doing all of that to manipulate people and economies and whatnot.
And that man is Klaus Schwab.
Because they have the technology for limitless energy. Yeah. They don't need to, go and fight over oil in the Middle East. And here's the other thing. Water. What is keeping us from widespread desalination of ocean water for water? Energy. It takes a lot of energy.
Fuel
to do
use.
It. If you had 0 point energy, you could desalinate all the ocean water you wanted. Like you could power a spacecraft to go to other planets. You could mine an asteroid.
Now here's something interesting. This is an interesting layer.
Dude, let's hear it.
So if we believe that this thing could be, but that it's not yet.
Yeah.
All right. The Ninjas of Butterflies guy talked about this on their show at some point, and I thought it was really interesting. He said that the amount of water that is used for AI now is like turning some countries into a drought land.
Like
because
cool
they're having to
farms.
totally reroute rivers, like major rivers.
Yeah.
So that they can cool all of the servers properly because they are so hot.
Yeah.
But they're saying it's a worthy investment because AI is going to be the thing that helps us solve the water and energy crisis. So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy of like,
circular.
It also reminds me though of those of those like DMT visions where it's like, if you give me everything that you have,
Then I will.
then I'll fix all your problems.
I'll serve you.
Oh no! I
I-
never guaranteed.
Yeah, I enslaved you. It's like when my kids say, I needed to sneak the food from the pantry so I'd have the strength to obey you when you say not to sneak food from the pantry.
Exactly.
It's all in there.
Exactly.
It's right there.
What came first, the chicken or the egg? Dad. The chicken.
Yeah, it's circular.
With that, speaking of water.
Yeah.
Speaking of water,
we need to get into our next story.
you want to go in? Yeah, let's do
because
this.
the next story, this is one that is absolutely great. It's so fascinating, and I'm excited for you guys to hear it. If you've never heard it before, you're in for a treat.
Yeah, it brings together all of our favorite story elements.
Yeah.
There's intrigue, there's tension, there's romance, there's suppressed inventions, and there's Cracker Barrel. It was March 20th, 1998. A man sat in the main dining room of a Cracker Barrel in Grove City, Ohio. Across from him were two other men, Belgians. They were wealthy. Their black suits and polished leather boots made them stand out vividly against the backdrop of small-town America. Beside the first man, whose name was Stanley, was his brother. The brothers wore casual clothes, jeans, t-shirts, and windbreakers, and they made the Belgian contrast all the sharper. To onlookers in the restaurant, the four men seemed to be enjoying a quaint, celebratory lunch. Glasses were raised with sincere hears more than a few times. Hands clasped in friendship across plates, and excited musings of what might come next for the group made it clear to everyone around that the men were happy. Only later would some of those same witnesses wonder if Stanley's laughter and smiling had been nervous. But for that day, the table radiated the euphoria of success after hard effort. Stanley rose from the table and walked to the restroom. While he was gone, his brother struck up conversation with one of the Belgians, asking whether a trip to his home country would be worth it for his family, what cities to see, which restaurants and wineries to enjoy. The Belgian in broken English indulged him, offering insider tips and even offering to host the family. He would travel the country with them as a guide. Why not? Neither money nor time would be an obstacle now. They had really done it. The other Belgian kept quiet during this exchange, idly fingering items on the table in apparent thought. When Stanley returned, he sat with a contented sigh and asked if the men might join him for a round of beers at a local dive later that evening. The Belgian smiled and accepted the invitation. Then Stanley, smiling ear to ear, picked up his glass of water and took a massive gulp. When he set it back down, something in him had already begun to change. It was subtle at first, a bead of sweat rolling down his brow and onto his cheek. He wiped it away. In seconds, more changes came, each harder for him to ignore. His heart thudded hard in his chest, skipping beats, enough palpitation to be uncomfortable. A sharp stabbing pain in his head made him bow forward, cradling his face in his hands. His breathing quickened and his mouth opened to pull in strained volumes of air. His brother asked what was wrong. Stanley looked up at the Belgians and his face drained of all color. He stumbled to his feet in a confused panic, groping as if he could barely see. His brother steadied him. Fear was painted across Stanley's features. The Belgians merely sat with apathetic expressions. Stanley fled through the restaurant's entry shop into the open air of springtime Ohio. He ran toward the street before tripping down the curb and into the parking lot. After struggling back to his feet, his brother caught up to him. With wild eyes and a breathless voice, Stanley uttered his final words. "They poisoned me." Then he collapsed, cold and lifeless. Only the breeze blowing across the scene comforted his twin brother, who began to weep. What had just happened? Why did Stanley believe the men he'd been celebrating with had murdered him? It all has to do with why they were celebrating in the first place. And for that, we have to go back. With the genesis of the internal combustion engine came a whole new market for global trade, fossil fuels. And from the moment that market opened, innovators and concerned citizens alike sought alternative fuels. Whether driven by a hatred for emissions or a desire to push technology's boundaries is beside the point. The introduction of a new technology always breeds competition for newer ones. The combustion engine was no different. It's therefore no surprise that from the earliest days of the engine, engineers have investigated other means of powering it. Stanley Meyer was one such innovator. And if the stories are true, he may have been among the only ones to find a clean, virtually free alternative that could eliminate a large portion of environmental and political concerns which are still debated today. Namely, Stanley thought he'd found a way to make cars run on nothing but water. Born in Columbus in 1940, Stanley and his brother Stephen grew up with a sharp mechanical bent. When other children waited for Christmas or birthdays for toys, the Meyer boys went out to scrapyards and built their own. His whole upbringing was marked by self-reliance and discovery in this way. After deciding higher education wasn't for him, Stanley enlisted in the military. Following a quiet deployment and discharge, he faced a question. What next? He had no degree, little experience beyond the Army, and no desire to start at the bottom rung of a long climb up some corporate ladder. His was an entrepreneurial spirit, gregarious and undaunted by the odds. Though not a builder or inventor by trade, Stanley's passion was still what it had been in his boyhood, building whatever he could dream up. He loved making things. So, back in his hometown, he embarked on a journey to become a foremost modern inventor. The early years of this effort went fairly well. He earned modest pay by developing more efficient circuit designs for use in other products before selling them to larger corporations. Then he tried creating entirely new products, small widgets and electrical systems, but he struggled to bring these to market. He did enough to get by, but he wasn't really living the life he wanted for himself, not yet. For that, he started to try thinking more outside the box. Working near conventional manufacturing exposed him to its many constraints. One constraint in particular caught his attention: the efficiency of internal combustion engines and the cost of their fuel. He instinctively believed that he could find some way to make this constraint go away. He fixated on it until he was sincerely interested in it, and then his interest became an obsession. Part of it stemmed from his not fully grasping why internal combustion demanded such costly, dirty resources. To him, it was simple. The engine just needed to ignite a gas inside a chamber to move a piston. How hard and how expensive could that possibly be? The world, he observed, was full of naturally occurring flammable gas like hydrogen. So there must be a way to harness that natural fuel to make engines more or less free and clean. What he failed to initially appreciate, though, was the vast amount of hydrogen gas needed to run an engine and the difficulties inherent in extracting it from the one natural resource that had plenty of it: water. Still, he was hopeful. He dove into electrolysis, the separation of water into hydrogen and oxygen gases, searching for a way to make this process easier. For years, he tinkered, and then one day in his mid-30s, he found what he believed was the answer. Operating outside institutional science, Meyer saw the world as a tapestry of interconnected forces. He knew the bonds between atoms and water were strong, but suspected that breaking them might not require greater strength, only greater finesse. He experimented with electrical frequencies, looking for one that resonated with the bonds until they weakened on their own. And then finally, through trial and error, he claimed to have found it: a way to ionize water with high voltage, low amperage bursts that split the molecule into its component gases. The hydrogen went into a combustion engine, the oxygen was vented as waste. Just like that, he believed he had built an engine that ran on water, exhausting only pure, breathable oxygen. In 1975, he retrofitted a dune buggy with his invention and documented a journey across the continental US. He filed patents, and he received these patents. He even claimed to have made the process so efficient that the energy output surpassed the input, a statement that, if true, would upend the first and second laws of thermodynamics. Investors poured in. Meyer delivered demonstration after demonstration. He was featured on television and in magazines. The charismatic, self-taught inventor seemed unstoppable, but then disaster struck. Some investors questioned his claims and sued him. A court ordered 3 expert witnesses to examine his device before a jury, and their verdict was devastating. Meyer's fuel cell was nothing special. His electrolysis was no better, actually it was no different than conventional methods. In response, Meyer insisted the examination was fraudulent, a hit job by big oil companies and car manufacturers to protect their profits. Some believed him, but most did not. And then, outside of a Cracker Barrel in 1998, after closing what he thought was a deal that could revive his research, he died. And he died convinced, with his last breath, that he had been murdered by powerful interest groups in big oil and perhaps even government. Thus, Stanley Meyer's perpetual motion water engine became the stuff of legend. But to us, the question remains, who was right? Stanley Meyer or the scientific community? After that, I want to hear from our other co-host today, Hugh Jackman. What do you think about this whole water fuel cell?
Do not do it.
I think that the Stanley Meyer guy
You've got to
was killed.
You got to stop.
Interesting take. Brian, what do you think?
You got to stop. It's gotta stop.
Dude.
Like our subscriber number on YouTube is plummeting in the live count.
It is annoying no one. It's bringing people together.
That's debatable.
It's about unity.
This is the story.
This is about building bridges.
You're building bridges between people who all hate it.
What do you think about the water fuel
Okay,
cell?
here's the thing.
Hugh Jackman gave his take.
This is the story where the first time I heard it, I was like, that's crazy.
Totally, yeah.
Because it's true that this man ran out of the Cracker Barrel and died.
Documented.
Like, that's a fact.
Yeah.
A lot of the things we talk about, we don't even know if even they happen.
And it's true that he said, they poisoned me. Like,
And
that
he
is
yelled,
a fact.
They poisoned me. And his brother, and like the man died convinced that he had drank his Cracker Barrel water and that someone, Big Oil, had poisoned him, and he ran out, and then he literally died.
Yeah. Now,
He is dead.
okay,
And that was where and how he died.
I'm waiting for the but.
Okay, so this is the suppressed invention narrative. Big Oil was threatened because there was no way that they were going to be able to. It was a simple technology. Like all of the greatest breakthroughs, they just make something that was completely impossible or really expensive. All of a sudden, like anybody could do it.
Yeah.
Like anybody pretty much today can go access a vehicle and they can drive 2,000 miles in a couple, in a day or two.
A light bulb.
Or a light bulb.
Yeah.
And like before, you had to do a tremendous amount of work to go 2,000 miles and it took forever. And by the time you got there was a whole different group of people with you.
Yeah.
Because most of them died.
Yeah, most of them
On
got
the way.
by the animals.
And I've played Oregon Trail, so I know that this is true.
Dysentery.
You died of dysentery, or you spent all your ammunition hunting for fun. You killed like an irresponsible amount of game.
Oh,
and then it
no.
all went bad.
A buffalo ran you over.
All your buffaloes spoiled, and now you're dead.
Wow, Brian, that point was both salient and compelling. And I just appreciate that a lot.
Man, Ben, thank you so much. I just want to invite our audience now, as we go into this next ad break, to go ahead and grab a 2-liter of your favorite beverage and drink yourself into a diabetic coma while you enjoy the art that is ads on Honda Cosmos. I've been having a problem with my friend Ben.
That's raw Ben Nationalist to you.
I'm sorry, my friend Raw Ben Nationalist. See, he doesn't trust those big box soap companies with all their nasty chemicals.
That's right. Gotta keep my T levels high.
Right, which has led him to do things like not shower for days at a time. But luckily, I just got some of that new Indigo Sundry soap.
Ew, keep that away from me.
No, Ben, this soap is different. It's made from all natural ingredients and none of that nasty, harmful stuff. And so now my friend Raw Ben Nationalist here.
That's Mr. Sir Reginald Ben Esquire III. Thank you very much.
So now Mr. Whatever his name is can shower in confidence. And so can you if you head to indigosundrysoap.com and pick yours up today. And hey, if you subscribe to any of their bundles or soaps, you get an automatic 10% off all your orders.
Delightful.
Okay. So there's that is the narrative that he believed. And so he had come up with this thing that was going to totally revolutionize travel. Think of like no pollution, no oil anymore. Like the power of the Middle East is broken. Think about how many wars have been fought over oil.
Yeah.
That is a big, big problem. And there are a lot of powerful interests that wouldn't want to see that happen, that would all of a sudden go from trillionaires to broke in like overnight.
Yeah.
If that's true.
To that point,
I'm
not saying okay, that I believe Stanley Meyer made the water fuel cell thing. Okay?
And fuel cells are real. Like you can run a car on hydrogen.
Well, there's hydrogen fuel cells.
Yeah, that technology that has water as an emission.
Here's the thing, though.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this is the classic podcaster trope.
Yeah.
Like every true crime podcast talks about like, Tina was well loved and respected by her coworkers. It wasn't like her to stay out late or to miss work the next morning. Case file. Shout out to that guy's accent.
Wow.
But like Stanley was well known and well respected in the community.
Okay, here we go.
As this very gregarious, very friendly, very trustworthy guy.
Yeah.
He wasn't people didn't think of him as a kook.
He wasn't a kook.
Let me say that, okay?
No.
Like genuinely, all of the witnesses are like, no, this guy wasn't out of his rocker. He wasn't crazy. Now, that doesn't mean that he wasn't lying.
Or that he wasn't just mistaken.
Or that he wasn't just mistaken.
Yeah.
But I do think that it's important. I don't know why it's important, but I think it's important for the integrity of the story.
For what I'm about to say.
That you know, listener, that you know that he wasn't a psychopath.
For what I'm about to say, which is that according to the coroner report, he died of a brain aneurysm.
Right.
And he just had a brain aneurysm and died. And people do die of brain aneurysms. And that secondly, his patents, which he filed on this exact project, not only has no one ever been able to replicate the technology based on what he patented, but they're now in the public domain. Like his patents have expired, they're in the public domain. And you'll notice that nobody has released a perpetual motion water machine car with this technology that has revolutionized travel. So,
and it's because his patents are so unclear.
They're just like vague, and
they're very vague, which makes me think like they'll give anyone a patent, dude.
We could
you and I could be patented inventors.
We should be.
Let's do
What's
it.
stopping us?
But
comments on YouTube what Ben and I should invent. Give detailed schematics of what we should invent so that we can totally not take exactly what you say, patent it ourselves, and become trillionaires.
Yes. Thank you, listeners, for doing that. I appreciate that.
I know Haunted Cosmos listeners are above average intelligent.
Probably like 200 IQ minimum.
A couple standard deviations to the right.
Okay, but yet another example of like the hysteria that can build. So one of the things that I think this story does betray is it's inherently interesting kind of because of the drama surrounding his death, but also people were so fascinated with this idea well before he died.
Yeah.
I mean, he really did. He went on local news. He was featured in magazines. He got the patents. He like was doing a tour and people were following him around. And it does show that people are hungry for this kind of innovation.
There was another guy named Maurice Ward.
Maurice. That's a Madagascar
let me give
reference.
a little bit
Another Madagascar reference.
Terrible. Let me give a little emergency story mode here, because Maurice Ward, he was sort of an amateur chemist, inventor in the 1980s. And he invented a material that he called starlight, not L-I-G-H-T, but L-I-T-E. Starlight is what he called it. And it was like a plastic sort of material or related to plastic in some way that he was able to paint onto a surface and make that surface virtually immune to heat, even up to and including lasers that could cut steel in an astonishingly short amount of time. So this isn't just something that he claimed he could do and no one ever saw. Like, you know, sometimes these crazy invention stories, they say, oh, we can do this crazy thing. But then as soon as the cameras show up, they're like, nah, never mind. The CIA they stole it last night. Maurice actually went on the BBC, painted an egg, a raw egg, with this material, starlight, and he subjected it to a blowtorch that I think was 1500 degrees Celsius for a lengthy period of time. And you can see it sort of blacken and char a little bit, but then you can take that egg and immediately put it in your hand on the side that was being flamed, and it was just warm to the touch. It wasn't hot. And then they crack the egg, and the egg is raw. It's not even cooked.
Wow.
Okay. So
That's
this
crazy.
material was real. He really did invent it. So there was a huge amount of buzz. People kept trying to come to him and say, well, let's patent this. Let's bring this to production. We could use NASA. Like all these different people were interested from a material science perspective. This could be very useful. It was lightweight, painted on, and it could withstand that kind of heat and pressure. So they allegedly did some tests with it that even showed it could withstand blasting forces from explosions and all sorts of things. But Maurice was so paranoid about people getting their hands on the formula that he refused to give the formula to anybody.
Wow.
They couldn't buy it from him. They couldn't license it. He wanted them to use it, but in a way where only he knew how to make it.
Like Coke, Coca-Cola.
They wanted to do it. So he wanted complete control. And he refused forever. Like he never made a fortune on it because he refused to let anybody use it. And he died in 2011. And no one knows how to make it.
Dude, it's crazy that after all that, there is one person that he gave all the rights to and all the info to. And that's the lead singer of Muse, who wrote the hit song Starlight in the mid-2000s and really immortalized the work of this man, Maurice Ward, this incredible mind.
That is a crazy turn of events that I didn't see.
No, that actually is insane. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I was thinking of that joke the whole time, and it wasn't even that good. But
And it was it kind of landed.
that is
Tell us in the comments if it was funny.
that is crazy.
So we can even show the video. Maybe they already did in the video, but there's BBC footage of the egg and the whole thing, and they crack it, and it's like still raw.
Man,
It's crazy.
Starlight. I'll be chasing that
Imagine-
Starlight until the end of my life. I don't know if it's worth it anymore.
He's still going for it.
Hold me in your arms.
Imagine painting your entire body in starlight and then launching yourself into the sun so that you could tell people what the inside of the sun is like.
That'd be
That's
sick.
what I'm
That'd
saying.
be sick. Or into a volcano. So
That's
you can be
all
like,
I'm
this is what
saying.
it looks like. Everyone wonders what it looks like really in the heart of a volcano.
Imagine if Gollum had been coated in that.
Maybe he
He'd
was.
still be with us to this
He
day.
is still. That's the ultimate in the
Dude,
sequel.
or Sauron could have just coated the ring in this, and it would have never he would still be ruling Middle Earth to this day.
Plot hole Tolkien estate. Maybe you should have thought of that.
Should have thought of that.
So should we go into the next story?
Yeah, I think we should talk more about Orgone energy.
All right, I'm down.
After World War II, France hurled itself into the Charybdis of modernism without so much as a backward glance. The period from 1945 to 1975 is remembered today as the 30 glorious years, but I doubt anyone living through it would have described that time as particularly good. A generation of young men had either died or barely returned from the second great shattering of world powers. Social norms were being ripped to shreds by the radical prophets of Marxism and anti-establishmentarianism, and the economic gap between the upper and lower classes widened at a rate theretofore unknown. Sure, the economy boomed, but at what cost? Evidently, at the cost of socioeconomic peace, and it was a price some were happy to pay on behalf of others. With a labor shortage in academia and a surge of students flooding higher education, universities lost control. They could offer little in the way of housing, tutoring, or reliable scheduling, but they still tried to maintain the rigor that marked academia before the war. This mixture of minimal amenities and high difficulty made the army of young, already disenfranchised students angry. They started forming activist groups across the country, demanding lower standards and better treatment in the schools. Their energy was contagious. Soon, the working class took up a similar message, leading to millions of workers striking for weeks at a time across France. It was radical. It was terrifying. It was sometimes violent and always confused. And through it all, one name kept surfacing: Wilhelm Reich. With zealous desire for liberation from the conservative norms championed by all who had lived before, this single man embodied the ethos the youth wanted their country to embrace. The New Left painted his name on walls, roads, and houses all across Central Europe. He was a messianic figure for the post-war generation, so much so that he is remembered today as the midwife of the sexual revolution. And yet, there is another side to Reich's story, one often overlooked but no less jarring than his primary legacy. Wilhelm Reich, you see, claimed to have found the source of pure and free energy. And what's more, he claimed it had been right under our noses for all of human history. Reich was born in 1897 in Austria. His keen mind for study and abstract thought drove his parents to enroll him in university as a teenager, where he studied under the groundbreaking psychoanalyst Sigmund Freud. Reich became a true believing disciple of Freud and his tenets, including the belief that every major psychic difficulty in a person's life could be traced to an unresolved conflict in youth, which manifested as a kind of sexual regression. In 1922, Reich graduated from the University of Vienna as a star pupil and immediately took a position as deputy director of Freud's outpatient clinic in the same city. There, he made a name for himself as both a reliable administrator and an insightful psychoanalyst. It was also there that he encountered increasingly radical political ideologies. He embraced Marxism and the critical theory emerging from the Frankfurt Institute. These convictions fused in his mind until he formulated an evolution of Freud's work. Sexual regression, Reich argued, was the primary driving force behind socioeconomic inequality in the modern world. He extended Freud's individual ideas to the body politic and was hailed a genius. To Reich, the societal system that governed sexuality with a Christian moral code had to be dismantled in order to ensure a more equitable world for all. If people were sexually free, he surmised, they would be successful and tolerant in every area of life. After World War II, when the broader academic audience was fully exposed to Reich's work, they devoured it whole. But leading up to World War II, Reich found himself in the crosshairs of the Nazi regime. When Hitler annexed Austria in 1938, the young psychoanalyst fled to the United States on the last available ship. In America, his work visa forced him to shift his focus slightly. He began teaching courses in biology and biophysics, exploring the brain's physical interactions with the body, personality, disease, and more. Though it was not his original specialty, the subject fascinated him. The deeper he delved into biophysics, the closer he came to what he believed was a kind of psychological theory of everything. Drawing on his earlier work with Freud and combining it with his growing interest in the mysteries of the human life force, Reich experienced a eureka moment. The reason sexual regression was so destructive, he believed, was because sexual energy was the life force of the psyche and the cosmos. Indeed, Reich concluded that sexual expression was the latent power behind the universe. He called it Orgone energy, a primordial life force that was omnipresent and effectively omnipotent, but consciously experienced in humans with sexual expression. Reich credited Orgone energy with everything from physical and mental health to geological shifts, weather patterns, and even the movements of the sun, moon, and stars. It was the energy that made all other energy possible. And so, Reich reasoned, anyone who could harness this energy at will could pioneer free, clean power for the entire world. In his private diaries, Reich admitted he believed he was destined to be that one. He devoted himself entirely to this subject until he was ready to go public. He invented devices like the Orgone accumulator, a chamber lined with organic materials that absorbed orgone from the ether before channeling it through the user, allowing them to experience the free flow of Reich's own God. He also built the Cloudbuster, an array of metal tubes that, after drawing in orgone from the sky, could allegedly produce rain anywhere, regardless of climate. Reich claimed a 1950s test in the forests of Maine with his device was an unqualified success. He published books and papers on the topic, and his work appeared in scientific journals and periodicals. At the same time, his earlier psychological writings were finally gaining attention in Europe. The media storm convinced many that Reich must be right about everything, including Orgone energy. His devices sold as fast as they could be made, and his books flew off the shelves. It seemed he was truly becoming the great man he believed himself to be. Then, it all stopped. In 1947, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration caught wind of Reich's claims that orgone therapy could heal all bodily and mental illnesses. They branded him a medical heretic and a fraud. In 1954, a federal judge prohibited the interstate shipment of orgone accumulators and cloudbusters. Reich defied the order, declaring that no court had jurisdiction over the cosmic, life-giving force. He was, without question, a true believer. 2 years later, FDA agents raided Reich's facilities, destroying all known orgone devices. The accumulators, the cloudbusters, the publications, everything was systematically burned by the US government. Reich was sentenced to 3 years in prison for contempt of court. He died there of heart failure. What remains of his work is minimal: a few photographs, scattered articles, and books that had already been printed. None of his devices survived, and the lion's share of his intellectual work on orgone energy now exists only as carbon drifting through the atmosphere, the smoke from the fires in which it was consumed.
Mr. Sauvé, Mr. Brian Sauvé.
Yeah.
Like, what is your take on this story?
Okay, so there are situations where the FDA has done shady things.
Oh, yeah.
And there are stories all over the place. Like you could think of the famous one in the 1930s with cancer research with Royal Rife. He was an inventor, medical inventor. He claimed to have invented this radio device that used radio waves to destroy cancer.
Yeah.
And he said like, oh, I've cured 14 terminal cancer patients with it. And long story short, FDA, basically suppresses it.
They memory hole it.
They memory hole it. And today you can supposedly get these devices through the black market and all this stuff. And I'm not so sure about that, to be honest, but there are situations where it seems like the FDA has acted in the interest of big pharmaceutical, big government, and that they have been bribed or taken money or power and influence in order to suppress things that wouldn't enrich the big pharmaceutical industry. And let me be clear that this is not one of those situations. And the FDA was so real for burning all of this absolute creeps junk nonsense. And he should have been put in prison for way longer.
Yeah.
They should have left his corpse in prison, rotting in the cell for years after that. Because this guy, we didn't even say everything in the little thing because we have to keep it PG. This guy was a flippin' creep.
They should have never allowed him into the country.
This man,
Let me just say, okay, he had this is just on his Wikipedia page. This is just what we know for sure. He had like 8 affairs. He had 3 different wives.
who would have guessed it?
Yeah.
From the guy that said we need to throw off Christian sexual mores.
And by the way, we're not going to go into any more detail, okay? But one of his biggest, like, groundbreaking research papers was titled "On Breaching the Topic of Incest."
I see.
This guy was a degenerate weirdo,
And he wasn't like, yeah, it's bad
and like
in that paper.
And also, you don't have to be a physicist to know that he was just wrong
He was just making
about his Orgone imagery.
He just wanted, there was stuff he wanted to do. And he invented a theory.
And he
to
wanted money.
justify it.
He wanted money.
And he was antichrist. He hated Christ. He wanted to destroy Christian morality and society with Marxism and all of this. Like, he was just a typical Freudian sexual degenerate trying to destroy and deracinate our culture.
Here's the thing. Like, this isn't in defense of Freud, but he wasn't even a typical Freudian. He was like, hey, Sigmund, thanks for your work, buddy. Let me make it way worse.
Let me take it in some directions that even would shock you.
That you would be like, whoa.
Yeah. So this guy, like, were his inventions suppressed? Yes, but because they should have been.
Yeah.
And once again, does the FDA receive like thank you? They probably don't get many of them.
We should send him one.
We should send him one from Hana Cosmo.
It is really interesting that is one of the only times in American history that there's been a federal book burning.
Yeah, literally
during peacetime.
And it
so
was
they've done it during wartime.
That's how bad.
And it was that guy. And they were like, I know that we're Brave New World and everything.
Yeah, like even the U.S. government.
We're very accepting and tolerant now. There's no religion, but this is a little
we gotta
much.
Stop. We gotta stop this guy. This guy needs to stop.
This guy must be.
So like not all suppressed inventions.
Dude, I wish that
shouldn't have been suppressed.
I really wish that the NRA or the NSA thought that he was like a dog.
So that they could get the ATF and be like, ATF,
yeah,
there's a dog over there.
Yeah, ATF.
It's that guy.
I wish the ATF had mistaken him for a puppy.
Because we know what they do when they see a dog. When the ATF hears a bark.
So anyway, they start blasting.
The lights go dark.
For the dog.
For the dog. This is one of their
That's good.
Yeah, I mean, anything you want to say to wrap up this episode before we go into the hot close? Like any conclusions, anything?
Well, I think one of the things is that and you get this with the Orgone energy thing. You get this a little bit with Stanley Meyer. You get it with the Nazi Bell, and some of the other emergency story modes we've mentioned. That there is this desire, this hunger, maybe hunger is a bad word for it, but there's an interest at the very least in free energy and this idea of free energy. But it seems to me that that's just not the world that God made, where there's no physical free energy. There's, in the world of the spirit, of course, there's infinite grace with the Lord. There's sovereign grace that he bestows endlessly on his children. But that's different. That's not energy. That's grace. And I think that there, like this appeal that we have is sort of like a desire to just get everything that we want and not actually have to pay anything for it.
Yeah.
And it almost seems like a crutch to get away from learning the hard thing, which is how to wisely take dominion.
We want to escape from entropy.
And from responsibility.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have to deal with entropy, which is just the effects of the curse that things lead to decay if left by themselves. And if you don't have to deal with limitation, then you can be as careless and as reckless as you want with whatever resource that is and not have to worry about it because there's no limitation. I think that's an irresponsible way to think about energy. I think that that's not the way that it works, and it won't ever work that way. And maybe this is taking it way too far, but I also think that if, you have these kind of UFO technologies, and that's actually what the hot close is going to be on, is touching more on this a little bit. If you have some of these UFO technologies that are being given to you or that the government is finding on its own with occultic practices or whatever, is that not also part of the deception because of what I said? Like that it actually takes man away from, I think, a proper mode of thinking about dominion, and it puts him into folly and foolishness.
Yeah, because invention, this is a good desire. This is something God did. God put this in man, this desire to go and search out glories and turn them in his hand and to become like a smith of the world, and in his smithies of his dominion to turn it into something that's adorned and beautiful and
like,
ordered.
Like Aule, the Valar of the smithy.
Dude took the words right out of my mouth. Dude. And we have this desire from God. We're supposed to do this. But in a fallen world, man is always seeking to climb back up the ladder of the fall to perfection on his own strength, and to find that limitlessness that belongs to God alone. And so we should be suspicious of these things from the beginning. It's not that we should be suspicious of dominion itself or technology itself, but when you hear these stories, there is a part of us that's like, oh, I really do wish that were so. I wish I could find that. It makes us vulnerable to deception and the pursuit of them. And so, like, you can imagine, even if it's just the ordinary demonic operating in someone like that last wicked guy, I mean, even if there's no overt demonic stuff happening in that is a demonic ideology. Yeah. It's an antichrist demonic ideology that would lead you down this pathway to try and discover this basically way of transcending our createdness and our humanity and becoming gods.
Yeah. Now I will say this, like, there's obviously ways that we should push the limits of our technology to, look for greater efficiencies and things like that. Like the internal combustion engine, I think the most efficient combustion engine that's ever been made was like 60% efficient or 70% efficient, something like that, which is bad. And so we should obviously be trying to look for ways that we can better get, better use, better develop, and harness energy. Not saying we shouldn't look for that. And we should be willing to think out of the box. Like, when the light bulb was first invented, or when Tesla was doing some of his stuff, he was accused of witchcraft and all these wild things. And people thought that it was crazy to have a glowing light that wasn't lit by a flame. And so I don't think that you should just write off advancements in technology right away because they don't fit into the conventional mold that we have now. You have to be willing to push boundaries, but you have to do that in a way that is also wise and sensical. Like, it has to be rational.
Let me give you an example of one last just little story nugget that shows man in being warped in his dominion, where he takes dominion in a good way and invents something helpful to people, and then intentionally even contradicts himself. In 1924, there was this group of basically leaders of company like GE and other General Electric and other companies that got together, and their goal. And this was exposed in 1945. So we found out about this meeting and what they talked about. They were getting together, and their goal was, how can we shorten the lifespan of the light bulb from 2,500 hours, 4,000 hours down to about 1,000 hours? Because they weren't making enough money. Yeah. Because the light bulbs they were making and on the open market, they had sort of settled into a value in the market, and they wanted to increase their profits So they said, how do we intentionally make light bulbs suck a little bit more?
Yeah.
And so the conspiracy is that this was like the beginning of planned obsolescence, where inventors were intentionally inventing things not to serve people, but to actually enslave them to this cycle of planned obsolescence.
Consumerism.
And now, like, I believe this theory 100% since encountering literally every appliance in my home. Like, my wife texted me, I'm not making this up, right before we recorded, and she's like, our oven's not working.
Oh my gosh. It's always something. I'll say this too, to your point. I recently bought a Toyota Sequoia 2014. Love it. Okay, I found out. So the 2014 has the V8 engine, Gen 2. It's like indestructible.
Yeah,
you know. The Gen 3 engine is the V6 twin turbocharged.
It's supposed to be more efficient.
So they market it as, well, it's more fuel efficient and it's got twin turbos, which is really
It's
cool.
like the Ford EcoBoost.
Here's the thing. It sucks. And they did it on purpose because they realized they weren't selling enough Sequoias in the American market because they were lasting too long.
They were too good.
And so they had to make a worse engine with all these flashy gizmos and everything, a worse car, so that they could sell, they could have a quicker turnover.
You ready for this? You ready for me to blow your mind? You ready for me to blow your mind? Can I just blow your mind for a second?
Can I blow your mind
right now? So the government is in league with lobby groups to make it so that companies are forced by regulation to add these economy, fuel saving, green energy, but the companies want the government to tell them to do that. So they lobby for them. So the government will tell them that they have to do it so that the company can say, it wasn't us. We can't make this great engine anymore because it's too fuel inefficient. We have to make this new one. And so they're all in league to maximize profit and control and screw you, the consumer.
I'll tell you what, big car is as bad as big farm.
Dude, I have a message for big car. Hide.
Because I'm on the prowl.
Because Haunted Cosmos is on the case.
They've raised the bat signal.
Yeah. Hide. All right. Well, Ben, this has been a great, fun episode for me, at least.
And for me. And for Hugh Jackman. Hugh, what do you think? Let's go into the hot club.
But before we do that, remember that if for some reason after that you want to support the show, sign up at Patreon, and we're going to be doing that giveaway. We're going to give away a piece of our set signed with a little note attached, send it to you along with some shirts and mugs and that sort of thing. So sign up today and support the show. Guys, we will catch you next time in the Haunted Cosmos arena.
And as a special treat, Hugh Jackman is going to read the hot clothes.
Please no. Absolutely not.
We'll see you guys next time.
See you next time.
How far may a government go in covering up technology? We've seen what they do to man's innovations when they reach beyond the status quo. But what would happen if a technology came to us from somewhere else? What would we do with a technology from an intelligence other than our own? Well, we may already know the answer. In 1899, Nikola Tesla warmed himself beside his fireplace in Colorado Springs. He stared into the flames, curious and almost troubled. He was deep in thought, deep in his own counsels. Only minutes earlier, he had been overseeing yet another of his countless experiments with his high-voltage transmitter. He still believed in the wireless dream. In fact, he believed he had already achieved it. All that remained was to iron out the wrinkles. So he scanned different frequencies, hunting for transmissions for miles and miles away until finally he found one. He noted its data points with excitement before something else happened. Something that froze both his pen and his thoughts. The signals repeated themselves in the same fashion after a 5-second delay. Then, after another pause, they repeated again. This happened 3 more times. With each repetition, the signal grew weaker, but every other aspect remained a carbon copy of that first. Tesla had captured a radio echo, but one unlike anything he had ever seen before. That was not the only oddity. When he analyzed the signal itself, he discovered that it didn't match any standard pattern of man-to-man communication. It wasn't natural, it was far too loud, far too mechanical and repetitive for that, but it was also not human. And so, Nikola Tesla sat back in his leather chair, staring into the glowing coals of his fire, utterly convinced he had just received an echoing signal from some intelligence in outer space. In ordinary radio communication, echoes are not unusual. Signals sent by a transmitter often bounce off of the Earth, whether it be a mountain, a mesa, or even our own atmosphere, before returning faintly to their source. Because radio waves travel at the speed of light, such echoes appear within milliseconds. In rare cases, involving radio telescopes, echoes may return after bouncing off of a planet or a moon. But the vast distances mean that those echoes take minutes, not mere seconds. Tesla's findings were extraordinary precisely because the echoes came at intervals of 5 to 10 seconds. That placed the source too far away to be on Earth, but also too close to be the moon or another planet in our solar system. As with most of Tesla's stranger discoveries, the experts dismissed his claim. They labeled it long-delayed echo and ridiculed it as a mistake or pseudoscience, assuming the eccentric inventor had either blundered or gone mad. That was the case for decades, until the 1920s. In that period and into the 30s, radio operators from the military, astronomy, and meteorology suddenly began experiencing the same long-delayed echoes that Tesla had reported 20 years earlier. Their echoes returned after intervals of 1 to 15 seconds, far too slow to be earthly, too fast to be interplanetary. What's more, countless reports noted the echoes sometimes shifted in tone or even core structure, changes thought impossible without intelligent intervention. Something, or someone, was modulating the symbols from behind the veil of impossibility. As more people reported these echoes, interest spread through the wider scientific community. Researchers and physicists swarmed the problem with theories. Some argued that multiple atmospheric layers could bend or delay signals. Others suggested that radio waves might become trapped in orbit around the Earth, circling multiple times before returning unpredictably. Still others dismissed the whole thing as equipment malfunction or user error. But a smaller group remained unconvinced of any of these. They weren't fools, only faithful to the maxim. Once every logical explanation has been eliminated, whatever remains, however unlikely, must be the truth. They believed the echoes were artificial. They believed they were alien communications, or attempts at alien communication. By 1954, the space race was nearly ready to begin. In just 3 years, the Soviet Union would launch Sputnik, the first human-made satellite. But before the Cold War reached the cold void of space, Earthbound technologies were still maturing. Radar, refined during World War II, was proving especially valuable, not only for tracking ships and planes, but for scanning the skies. It was then that a U.S. Air Force radar operator made a startling discovery. On his screen appeared an unknown object orbiting just above the atmosphere. It was not a plane, it was far too high for that, and it was also no mistake. Something was up there, circling the Earth like a great eye, spying on an unconsenting world. Newspapers reported the anomaly, but little else came of it. Perhaps that was inevitable. Human technology had not yet put anything into orbit, so the very idea that something already waited there could only provoke a kind of transcendent dread. It was easier to just forget about it. But the object itself would not allow us to do that. Nearly 20 years later, in 1974, astronomer and part-time science fiction writer Duncan Lunan revisited the long-delayed echo data from the 1920s and the 1930s. His re-examination produced a shocking idea. The echoes, he argued, were not echoes at all. Their unusually high amplitude made it nearly impossible for them to be reflections of Earthbound transmissions. Instead, he concluded that they were unique broadcasts from somewhere off-world. Building on prior work by Professor Ron Bracewell, who had suggested the echoes were alien messages, Lunan tried to decipher them. If they were original transmissions, then they might actually make sense. To his eye, the patterns mirrored intelligent language. So he asked himself, what would I say if I were sending the very first message to an unknown civilization? And his answer was fairly logical. I would try to tell them where I am. With this assumption, Lunan plotted the data on a map of the night sky, and to his astonishment, the points matched the star system Epsilon Boötis, the central star of the Herdsman constellation. When Lunan went public, he received both support and scorn. Under pressure, he softened his claims, admitting that the excitement of discovery had made him write less cautiously than he should have. But then decades later, in August of 2013, he returned to the subject on his website. Having reflected in secret for nearly 40 years, he admitted that his confidence in what he had found had never truly weakened. And so, the question lingers. What was sending those signals? And if Lunin was right, had he uncovered where they came from? In 1998, the world watched as the space shuttle Endeavour launched from Cape Canaveral on its mission to the International Space Station. Its task was to deliver the first uniquely American module, a connecting node linking the Russian and American segments of the ISS together. The mission was a complete success. The astronauts executed everything flawlessly and returned safely. But during their time in orbit, the crew saw something. They noticed what they assumed was a piece of space debris, and they took a photograph of it. Later, those pictures revealed a strange, amorphous black object drifting in Earth's orbit. When NASA released the photos to the public, some noticed details that didn't quite add up. The object's clean lines, its oddly mechanical texture, its occasional motions inconsistent with free-floating debris in orbit, all of it suggested that this wasn't debris at all, but was something deliberately placed. Here, at last, all of the threads converge. Some became convinced that this object was the same mysterious satellite that had haunted reports for decades. Perhaps it was the source of Tesla's signals and the long-delayed echoes of the 1920s and 1930s. Its distance from the Earth seemed spot on. And if studied more closely, it might prove to be something far greater than forgotten human junk. The theory sparked debate. No one could deny the object existed. NASA, however, dismissed the claims of it being a foreign object, stating that it was actually just a thermal blanket lost from the Endeavour shuttle. Conveniently, that mission had logged one of the thermal blankets missing. That has remained the official story to this day, but for some, it seems a little too convenient. Could it be something else? Something watching us? A messenger from the stars? A messenger from the gods trying to communicate? Well, of course we don't know. But if it is, what do we do with that? And here we leave you with an encouragement. No matter the revelations of history, no matter the discoveries of science, no matter the powers that seek to undermine the revelation of God, all of it is going to pass away. But His word will remain. And no scheme of hell can separate you or me from the eternal love of God in Christ. And even if an alien satellite orbits above us, does not God tell us that we wrestle against powers and principalities? So take heart, Christian. There is still war to be done, but there's nothing to fear. All that stands against you trembles at the name of the one to whom you belong.
Wolfman in disguise, giant angel cries. We hear all their lies. Moon Knight children here to steal your soul. Bigfoot skinwalkers off from mind control.